On the internet, people who behave a certain way in most cases are what they appear to be based on their behavior and actions. But then again, it sometimes is a learned behavior dealing with people who behave that way. They begin imitating the individuals they have to argue with. I'm no different than anybody else here. And sometimes I forget that. So I'm going to be evaluating a couple of things here in this video to see how off the mark I was or wasn't. Now I'm going to bring up a couple of things here. Would you like to join the Legion? And a symbol that's a circle with two lines going through it, and instead of them being even, they're offset. It's not a gas-filled mine shaft symbol. There is a similar one and it's poorly done, and it isn't a good match, for covered horizontal shaft, and there's a covered vertical shaft one, and the symbols look different, and they're done expediently. And the rest of the time, it's written out in English. A long time ago, when people would go mining, they would have a lot of people who were not illiterate. They just didn't read that language. I'm sorry, but if everything was written in Arabic, you'd be dead in a mine. That's why they would use symbology. Glyphs. Now, the symbol for would you like to join the Legion is a circle with two lines through it. A circle, if you find it in a society the first time you see it, it's a sign that the society, if they're able to draw it reasonably even Steven shaped to where it's really a circle, it's considered a sign that the population has figured out how to do something that's, oddly enough, kind of difficult, and that is to draw a circle that's completely symmetrical. It's usually done by figuring out a mechanism for drawing or writing or making a symbol. It can be done dozens of ways, but it usually marks a beginning of technology. Ergo, it becomes something symbolic of an achievement. It becomes almost a sacred symbol in some societies. It does not have to be, if it's a circle, associated with a snake eating its tail. That comes much later, and it's also not a symbol, just a circle, whether it's got lines through it or not, in any particular group of populations, people, or whatever. It's somewhat universal. It can have lots of meanings. And another step we found is learning that the number 0 must be used in order for you to be able to solve certain types of problems. It's a lot like deciding dark matter has to exist. That's our current placeholder for we don't know shit about how galaxies rotate. I'm not really sure dark matter is a real thing yet, but it's a sign that you're aware of something that you need to accommodate for that takes a little bit of brain twisting. Just like 0 over 0 is not indeterminate, it's all of the numbers. It's a random number generator. Procedural versus static mathematics. The reason Minecraft works, but if you did it the old way where you weren't using procedural generation, you'd never be able to have Minecraft. You have to go beyond what you find as limits and do something that requires that you do. It's the next step. The following dark symbol in Terry Pratchett's 2005 book, Thud, page 74 through 93. A circle with two diagonal lines through it that Helmclever makes with spilled coffee on a table. That's the symbol that is drawn out. Is that the Tekkitt Realms version of the would you like to join the Legion symbol? No. Would you like to join the Legion as an expression? Would you like to join the Legion of Mary, 2019, of Darkness, 2018? Sounds like they're in competition for your soul. The trend for would you like to join the Legion only being typed in started October 2021, almost like it was a Halloween thing, because that's what the Tekkitt Realm did. Also, January 9th, 2022. It was not a common term. It is not, and the symbol didn't exist before that point that I can find and anybody else could find. It's pretty much a dead story. And even the Terry Pratchett reference here isn't really a good example because the two lines aren't described as being offset, which is needed. And a covered horizontal shaft, it's pretty close. It's got two lines, and you could draw them offset. But again, I only found one point on the net that showed something like that. That's not close enough. And none of these are good hits. So the most likely thing is that the individual, the Tekkitt realm, created the symbol along with the rest of his spooky stories he puts up. He posts scary stories. That's it. Next, I want to bring up a YouTube channel that's been communicating with me over the months, and we're going to do some background. This channel's how it presents itself. Has videos like Hollywood Elite Famous Strigoi Vampires are real. The government has known it all along. The Civil War never ended. War for the soul of Midgardhr, spelled a specific way, so it's a little bit hard to define, maybe. And also making the assertion that the ruble is backed by UN gold now. Actual news story, April 28, 2022. Secretary of Russia's Security Council asserted that the Kremlin plans to back the ruble with gold. The individual saying this, it's only a reference, is Nikolai Patrushev. That's not the UN. So this is one of the characteristics of the channel. It appears to show a news story being made into something about the United Nations, and it talks about, blood drinking elitists in Hollywood or whatever. Now this does smack of a specific kind of trope on the internet of people who are friendly to the kind of people who would storm the Capitol and keep my vote from counting. But that doesn't necessarily mean anything. And this individual commented that under one of my videos that if you say something LabTech doesn't like, it's not going to show up or something like that today. But let's review here. Assertion by this individual under my channel. Sorry for wasting time, but the background's important. Saying the usage of the symbol on YouTube as a recruiting standard is truly baffling, and then brings up an origin story for it being related to a symbol for the cult of the serpent because of it's having a circle in it. Jormungandr. Now this is a YouTube channel, if you're not aware of it, that's preoccupied with symbology, demons, and has attempted to start conversations on Reddit about the subject matter. This individual reads lots of books on the subject, and that's okay. And let's see. If Tekkitt Realm is running all of this as an ARG, he has chosen his associated symbol very poorly. I agree. What I went off on was that the individual decided that this symbol has to be, or is, it sounds like, is related to the serpent symbol. It isn't. It's literally a circle. The most likely origin story for a circle being seen as a symbol in any society is either a sign of them achieving a technological level, an understanding level, and it may be considered sacred geometry and that sort of thing, which is actually a perfectly acceptable way of saying the word. A circle has some symbology that's sacred geometry. But deciding the cult of the serpent, etc., has to be invoked. So anyway, I said there isn't any old symbol of Jormungandr found that matched what the Tekkitt realm had up. I'm doing this as a response. I agree with most of what the person says, obviously. It's a poorly chosen symbol, but I'm thinking what happened is the Tekkitt realm just randomly drew some stuff and found out that it wouldn't show up in Google image search, so he could make something that wouldn't violate a copyright. That's what a lot of people have concluded. That, or he found a symbol and drew a riff on it. That's how a lot of people create a new thing. A lot of alphabets are based on that. Things change and evolve. Are you going to post your sources for this assertion that it has to be the cult of the serpent, etc.? Because when I looked it up, I also include some links below. It didn't go anywhere. It also didn't match any of the symbols. And I have to point out that when people do books on symbology, the transliterations for it will often have slightly simplified or very simplified versions. In many books you look up, they have very ornate drawings. But some of those are based, oddly enough, on something very simplified that can be written out fast as a set of instructions. Then the person says, my sources are of mixed derivation for the symbol. I have several photos of the rune within a book, but there isn't any rune that matches it. And by using the word rune, we're talking about Norse runes, and there's a lot of variations within groups, but I couldn't find any examples. I will gladly send you an image if you give me an email address somewhere to post them. You did not find anything pertaining to this symbol there is not a set symbol for the entity itself. The usage of the rune by the cult is due to the esoteric meaning of Anglo-Saxon runes, and then he provided these. And then he said, have you read the Sorcerer's Screed by Skuggi? I'm going to pronounce it incorrectly because I'm never going to get it right anyway. I said, so have you revealed your alleged mixed derivation sources yet? In response. And then I posted a whole bunch of stuff about Skuggi, a.k.a. Jochum Magnús Eggertsson, son of Eggert. Born in 1896, died in 1966, he wrote a book in 1940 called Sorcerer's Screed, an Icelandic 182-page grimoire or spellbook. He went under I think the Icelandic version of the word shadow. And I, offhandedly says, can you give me some of your sources for your mixed derivation? If that's one of them, that's great. But again, you haven't answered my question from months ago. And I don't know why you're invoking this. And what's going on here is I'm going to play commenter's advocate. That's what the person's knowledge is in. It's like me posting a joke about, that's a lot like, 3EF in pseudo hex code for the HP41CX coconut processor's return function. None of you got that. That's dead ass accurate. It's 3EF. That's the return function, or it was. For a particular processor used on a particular calculator that was really a computer. One of the first computers that I actually worked on. It's permanently burned in my head. I can probably still write the code out manually in hexadecimal. It was 10-bit and 12-bit and 57-bit code. Some of you know what I just said. Now understand why it was so deep. There's word length and then there's what the fuck. Anyway, but he invoked Sorcerer's Screed, and it doesn't show the symbol either, by the way. So his response to me asking, where's your mixed derivation sources? The only book and only that book, and I guess, and several something words. Ogham teinne. I'm going to mispronounce it, so we're going to go from there. Also, I'd like to point out that you invoke Midgardhr here instead of just pronouncing it or spelling it in a way that's easily pronounced. You're using one of the many more obscure versions of the pronunciation or spelling here. It's the spelling, actually. Not quite sure exactly why you've chosen to ride my ass over this, as I was one of the first to agree with you that Tekkitt meant all of this as a fucking joke. Then why didn't you type it out in plain English instead of being flowery? Now, I'm not trying to be not trying to minimize how much of an asshole I'm being here. I'm just saying, if you want to communicate, spell it Midgardh like everybody else instead of the supposed proper spelling. The proper spelling doesn't even use the letters that we're using on the keyboards here. It uses a bigger set of characters. To check the symbol closer before starting shit. You want sources as to the usage of the symbol by the Cult of Jormungandr? Yeah, and you still haven't done so. Pull a Stephen Flowers would be the best way. Again, this isn't completely clear. And again, when you told me to look up Skuggi and Sorcerer's Screed, I had to go ahead and look for 15 minutes to find out what his real name is. And find out that it's not a worthwhile source because it doesn't contain the damn symbol. And again, you're saying, well, the symbol, there's lots of versions of it. No. Okay, that's not a good reference point. But I understand that you've gone off on a tangent of what you're good at. Now, I'm going to say something here. Now, I'm sounding like I'm shitting on this person, and in a way I am, obviously, because the person invokes, gold backed by the UN, etc. Ehrann, which I'm going to mispronounce because it's not spelled in a standard way, and Dealg. I don't know how to pronounce your name properly, sorry. Change it to an American name. No, I'm not going to do that. Evil Amongst Us for US, and that's 2021, and then Ehrann Dealg, 2016. This individual's posted stuff on Reddit and not gotten any responses. Now I'm going to get to the point here. Instead of saying things plainly in an easily digestible way, you've chosen to invoke the hive mind. You've chosen to invoke being literate. How dare you? But I do have to state, I apologize if I've hurt your feelings, and I very much apologize for doing so, having gotten you to get to the point. Please, when you communicate with people, get to the point in a way that they can easily understand. Even if you have to sound like you're talking down to them, at least they can hear you. And I do apologize for offending you. No, I'm apologizing. But you could have done this faster. and much more clearly. Just saying. Thanks for watching. Have a good day. Good luck.